Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. First, I'll just introduce myself and then we'll move on. So hi, and welcome to the Artfully for Fiscally Sponsored Projects webinar. My name's Alessandra and I work on the Artfully team. I work alongside my colleague Marcus and our program director Selena. Marcus and I work in customer support on the Artfully team to help people like you guys kind of learn how to use the software. And we work at Fractured Atlas alongside the fiscal sponsorship team. And here with me from that team tonight is Teresa. She's a program specialist in fiscal sponsorship. So she'll be here to answer any questions that you guys have later on if I can't answer them about that might pertain to fiscal sponsorship. So as we wait for people to tune in, I just want to get an idea of what kind of people are listening tonight. If you guys see the chat box on your screen, if you can maybe type whether or not you're currently fiscally sponsored, or if you've got your application out, you're waiting to hear back, or if you have no idea about fiscal sponsorship but are interested, that'll just help me get an idea. But you can just type that. You'll see there's a chat function on the right side of the screen. So that would be great. Okay, so moving on. Here's a quick rundown of what we're going to talk about tonight. So first, we're going to just talk about connecting your Fractured Atlas fiscal sponsorship accounts with Artfully, and then we'll move on to patron management in the Artfully database. Then we'll talk about taking in donations as well as tracking them within Artfully. And then we're going to talk about creating events and selling tickets and a bunch of different other features in the software. And then finally, we'll talk about the fees associated with it, as well as how you can get the funds both from tickets and from donations. We'll have plenty of time for questions at the end, so I would definitely encourage you guys to type them or write them down or type them in the chat box if you think of any during the webinar. I'll also try and keep an eye out if I do see any that are pertaining to what I'm talking about so that we can cover those during the presentation. And lastly, I will be recording this so I can send you guys that as well once I'm done with the presentation, as well as a copy of the slides so that you've got that. But first and foremost, what is Artfully? So Artfully is our web-based platform that we created for our fiscally sponsored projects, as well as other artists to manage their business. Tonight, we're going to talk about how you guys specifically can benefit from it, because the Artfully business software was created in response to our members telling us how they found existing ticketing and patron management systems didn't always suit their needs and can get pretty costly. Because these types of tools have always been used by much larger arts institutions, but our aim was to make it much more accessible to emerging artists and arts groups like yourselves. So these smaller groups like you guys need flexible tools that are easy to learn with an intuitive design, and the tools also needed to integrate with Fractured Atlas so that our fiscally sponsored projects could keep track of their donors. We've had people, really just, it's been used by a multitude of disciplines. So we've had people ticket anything from like classes and small workshops for studio arts or creative writing to much larger music and performing arts festivals. So it really covers a wide range of functionalities. There are three main functionalities of Artfully: ticketing, a CRM, and donations. So while ticketing may not be pertinent to your project, the other two features are pretty much invaluable when keeping track of your funding and outreach to patrons. We'll refer to each of these features as kits that you can activate on your account in order to opt into them, just so you guys are aware if you hear me using that word. So regardless of the status of your fiscal sponsorship application, you'll be able to start using Artfully immediately. So first, we're going to talk about how you can integrate it with your fiscal sponsorship account, and then we're going to move on to discuss all of the features. On the Artfully website, it's really easy to connect your accounts, and it's also totally free to sign up. I'm probably going to stress that a bunch of times tonight, just FYI. So when you're signing up for the first time, you'll just want to make sure that you opt into using your Fractured Atlas login credentials to create the Artfully account. Then, whenever you sign into Artfully, you'll see on the bottom with the bottom arrows pointing at, just make sure that you specify you're using your Fractured Atlas account. Something just to keep in mind, we are adjusting the sign-up process, so this might look a little bit different starting in June, but regardless, it'll be super easy to sign up because that's what we aim for. You can also access the Artfully website from your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. So if some of you you might already be familiar with this if you've already looked around your fiscal sponsorship account or if you've already raised money with us, so you know this page pretty well. For those of you waiting for approval, this page is your primary portal for interacting with the program. Once our board of directors approves you for the program, you'll be able to log into our website and access your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. And that's what we're looking at right now. So this is where you can find all the different information you need about your project, donations, and other tools. Just like right now in the accessorize section is where you can find Artfully. It'll link you directly to our site so that you can sign up or sign in. Moving back to the Artfully interface, once you've signed up, this isn't a glimpse at a main account page in the Artfully. So once you've created the account, this is where you would view and add kits. We call the account administration page. So to start, you just want to make sure that the sponsored donations kit activated when you created your account and synced it to your Fractured Atlas account. So this pretty much just ensures that information is shared between the two connected accounts. So as soon as you've created your account, you can start filling out your patron database, which is just totally free to use and whatever you need to do with it. All of the information about your patrons, whether it comes from ticketing or from donations, come together in the Artfully CRM. So for those of you not familiar, the CRM stands for Client or Customer Relationship Management. This type of tool helps you learn more about your fans and your patrons, and it's, again, ready to use as soon as you've created the account. We'll tour these records in a sec, but I just wanted to give you a screenshot of what one looks like. So a CRM is going to help you answer questions such as who showed up to your last performance or event, or who's donated to your project lately, or who have you sent a thank you or the most recent newsletter to. So answers to these kinds of questions sort of help you to get a better understanding of your audience. This is a demo record. If anyone's read Ayn Rand, I'm kind of a nerd, so that's what I made. It's a character in one of her novels. Anyways, moving on. So to begin answering the aforementioned questions, you can create a record for each of your fans in the CRM. This is the few different ways that you can do it in Artfully. So when patrons donate to your sponsored fund, a record is automatically created once the donation's been processed. You can also manually add new records for someone, or you can import a whole list of people. We've got a template in the app that's super easy to download, and you can just fill that out and put it right back in. And it's also worth noting you can later export those records if you need to. And then lastly, if you've got a MailChimp, that's great. You can connect it to Artfully, and then all of those contacts will be copied over. So now we're just going to take a look into how you can look at the people records in greater detail. So this is a little bit more filled out of a demo record we got. This is a record for Cecilia Huang. So aside from the basic information about her, such as her name and contact information and her social media handles that you can see at the top of the page, you can add a lot more details about the patrons using notes and tags. Tagging the patrons makes them easy to find and group with other similar contacts. So for example, Cecilia right now, with a big blaring arrows pointing at, she's tagged as a board and a volunteer. So that's just one way of, being able to identify her. You can also view a patron's lifetime value in the donations and ticket sales at the top of the record. So you'll see up there, that's what she's worth, and then you can kind of compare that to other patrons in your database to determine, higher value patrons, and if you want to reach out to a certain level of people. All of Cecilia's interactions with the organization are recorded here in the action feed. So we see here that Cecilia heard from us via email. About a week later, she bought a ticket to a show and also made a donation. And all of that was automatically added to her record. And these are based on interactions that she's done via Artfully or Fractured Atlas. So you can see she's been pretty active with this organization. You can also edit your patrons' preferred methods of contact. So this is great for understanding your patrons and nurturing your relationships with them. So if they've got do not call on their record and you go because you'd like to reach out to them about your performance, maybe I'll just shoot them an email instead. And we've also synced Artfully with MailChimp, which is a popular email marketing application. So you'll notice with the arrows pointing at all the mailing lists that she's subscribed to on the bottom left corner. So the sync will track these unless you know each time that she'll receive a communication from you. So when you put all this information together, you get a pretty remarkably full picture, not only of the individuals, but also your entire audience space, and it's really without much data entry. Like if people are making donations to your sponsored fund, it's automatically being added to these records, and you don't have to do much work, which is what the whole point of why we've made this. Moving on. So just to delve a little bit deeper into the CRM, when you want to discover more about groups of patrons, you can turn to the advanced search features, where you can search for individuals based on tags and a bunch of other different criteria. So this is an example of people that are tagged as a VIP, that are located in Minnesota and have made a certain donation amount between a certain time range. So then you could theoretically go work with this group of people and maybe contact them all for a special mailing that you created or something else. But it allows you to search for people based on, different criteria to help you find who you're looking for. So now that we've touched on the value of the CRM, why don't we talk about actually processing and tracking the donations that you're getting in it. So you can accept and keep track of donations in Artfully in a few different ways. So for the first one, whether the patron mails a check or donates on your project page on the Fractured Atlas website, all of these donations are automatically imported into your Artfully account. Also, patrons can add donations on top of ticket sales. And lastly, you can embed a donation widget onto your website so that patrons don't have to leave your site to donate. So we're going to look at how each of these methods functions in the Fractured Atlas website, as well as in the Artfully software, and then we'll definitely touch on how you get these funds a little bit later in the presentation. So the first place that your patrons can donate is your landing page on the Fractured Atlas website. So some of you may or may not be familiar with this. Your donation landing page is the public-facing page on our website where you should put content that you want potential donors to see. So for those of you who have not been approved yet, once your fiscal sponsorship application has been approved, you'll be able to create a page like this for your project. You can direct donors that you want to contribute by credit card here or debit card. And then once they've done that, they'll be required to provide an email address, and then we'll automatically send them a receipt. So say someone wants to donate on the Fractured Atlas website. They'll click on the donate button, and this is the box that'll appear. So this is pretty much kind of like the path that they would take in donating to your project. They'll enter their contact information and their payment information on this screen. And then finally, once they're done, this message will pop up on their screen. It's also important to note that the donations made by credit card will show up as Fractured Atlas on your donor bank statements. So sometimes it's just worth letting them know that when you could correspond with them. So then this is going into what you see on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. A record of that donation that they made on the front end will appear in your sponsored fund history. So you'll see that this one is still pending and will be available for at least 1 week after it was made. So just to reiterate one more time, for those of you who are experienced with Fractured Atlas and have received donations through us before, as soon as you sync your account, all of your entire donation history will be imported into Artfully as soon as you connect it. So that means those donations and donor records were automatically created, so you don't have to do any of that work. And then for any of you new people here tonight, any new and future donations will automatically be logged in Artfully. So just moving over to your Artfully account, this is what you would see from that patron donation in Artfully. So this is what happened once the donation was processed in Fractured Atlas. This record was automatically created in Artfully. If anyone's familiar with the Hudson River School painters, I made this record after him for a demo. Anyways. On the other hand, if you receive donations by check, you'll need to report any donations made by check on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the Donations button. And then, just like the donation that we saw, once the donations have been processed by the Fiscal Sponsorship team, those records will be created in Artfully. I also mentioned earlier that when you connect your Fractured Atlas and Artfully accounts, the Sponsored Donations kit will automatically activate if you're already a fiscally sponsored project. So with that kit activated, a donation field will be added to patron checkout when they're completing a ticket order in Artfully. So here, there's an example. A patron can add a donation to their cart and then proceed to checkout. and then those donations from that order will go into your sponsored fund. It's also possible to add a donation widget to your organization's website. So this is great for keeping your patrons on your website. They can donate right there without having to be directed away from it. Just, if you don't want to send them to another website, as awesome as the Fractured Atlas website is. This is not necessary at all as a feature to opt into. It's just another way for you to take donations and sell tickets. So then basically what would happen is the patron would add a donation to the cart, and then they would check out. This little shopping cart pops up at the bottom of the page. So this is the widget. To add the widget to your website, or for selling tickets, or taking donations, you do need to have kind of a firm understanding of the code of your website. If you're not too familiar with the markup language, it's probably best to discuss the installation with your site developer. But just so you guys are aware, you can get to this from the Sell menu in the upper right and left-hand corner of Artfully. So from there, you just need to specify what you need, and our site will generate that code that you're looking at on the right side of the page. And either you or your site's developer can just pop that into the header. So now we're just going to move on to talk a little bit about the features of ticketing in Artfully. Okay. So you can start selling tickets immediately as soon as, whether or not you're fiscally sponsored for free events. However, if you'd like to activate the paid event ticketing kit to sell tickets that, have a fee, we do need a copy of your electronic funds transfers form and a check, which you can find both in fiscal sponsorship, like you see here, and in Artfully. So you can find this form in either place, and we use the same form for both of all of Fractured Atlas programs. So one single form for both Artfully and fiscal sponsorship will suffice. Just make sure that you check off both programs when you're filling it out. So you'll see when you're ready to create an event, you'll just go to the Sell menu in the upper left-hand corner, and it's super easy to create an event. The system essentially just walks you through the steps, so there's, it's pretty foolproof. Once you've created that event, you'll be guided through the steps of adding details about the location, some ticket prices, and show times. So you're looking at this page right here. It just walks you down the steps on this side of the page right here. It's also possible to add multiple ticket types to an event. So these tickets can either be visible to all of your patrons and your staff, or only visible to you and your staff if you just want to sell them on the back end or over the phone or at the door, for example. And this is the calendar where you can add the show dates. So you'll just select a show time at the top of the page and then click on the dates on the calendar. So once you've added all of the details, you'll see them compiled on the event overview page. So this is where you can edit details about the show dates, the times, the tickets, the prices, as well as the venue location. You can also create discount codes here to share with your guests. So that would be, for example, if you want to give someone like $5 off a ticket if they get it at a certain time or something like that, for example. But once you've got all the event details set up, you're ready to, make the show publicly viewable and start selling tickets. You can set up pretty much any type of event as you like, as long as you don't advertise that the ticket purchase is tax deductible to your patrons. So this is just something that's really important. It's a common question that we get on both teams. What about benefit events? Because a lot of our fiscally sponsored projects host benefits or fundraiser events to help raise funds either for their organizations or an upcoming project, which is great. We definitely encourage you to do something like that. But however, currently it's not possible for our sponsored funds to sell tax deductible tickets in Artfully because ticket sales are considered earned revenue. So that money is just going right to your bank account and not to your sponsored fund. So the option for this would be to set up giving levels. So if you'd like for your patrons' purchase of a ticket to be tax deductible, minus the cost of that ticket to your event, you can set these up on your Fractured Atlas sponsorship page. So you'd need to go to your fiscal sponsorship account in order to do this. So basically, you would just need to contact the fiscal sponsorship team with the certain giving levels, the language for each level, and the amount, and then they would work with you to set that up. So this would be an example of what a patron would see on the Fractured Atlas website. They would choose a level to donate at, and the funds from that level would go to your sponsorship fund. Then your patrons would be issued the tax receipt for that donation, and then they'd also receive entrance to your event in return. So that's all in Fractured Atlas. Again, you would want to reach out to the fiscal sponsorship team about that. But let's go back to Artfully because that's what we're talking about tonight. So we're just going to talk about the sales channels now within Artfully, so how you can sell tickets. There are three main different sales channels for selling tickets in Artfully. The first one is through an automatically generated web page that we call an event storefront that the app will generate for you. The next one is by embedding the ticket information on your own website using the widget, which we saw earlier, or the WordPress plugin. And another feature that we have is the box office, which enables you to sell tickets directly to patrons at the door. So the money from these ticket sales is all going directly to your bank account. So right now, we're looking at an example of the first sales channel that I touched on. This is an event storefront. So once you've published your show, which means you made it publicly viewable, you can direct patrons to this unique URL where they can go to purchase tickets, and the app will generate that for you. So it's just a link that you can, show everyone from anywhere, your site, your e-blast, social media, wherever, just share it with everyone. So on this, once the patron goes to this link, they're going to see a description of your show, a map displaying the location of your venue, and your contact information. So then all they have to do is select the show date, choose which tickets they want to buy, and then add them to their cart. The patron would then be taken to checkout, where they'd enter their payment information, and they'll receive an order confirmation for that. They do also have the option to enter a discount code here if you did make one. And you'll see that this image shows what I mentioned earlier, how patrons can add a donation to a sponsored fund on top of their ticket order. So that donation will go to Fractured Atlas to be processed and then deposited into your sponsored fund. The ticket portion of the order will go to your bank account. Another way that you can sell tickets in Artfully is right on your own website. I showed you earlier what goes into the installation of a widget to take donations. The same thing for selling tickets. So this is just an example of one of those, what we're looking at here. Some benefits of this are that it doesn't redirect patrons away from your site. There's no external sketchy browser pop-up that comes up. All we do is give you that code that you saw earlier, and then you paste it into the header of your site. And everything's customizable but this shopping cart that pops up. So once the patron has added the items to their order, that shopping cart appears when they can complete their checkout. Once they've entered their billing information, then they can, get an order confirmation. Again, you'll notice that you'll see the Make Donation button because they do have the option to add a donation to your sponsored fund and to add it to their order, just as if they were checking out via this storefront or some other way. Another way to sell tickets is by using the box office. This allows you to sell tickets at the door or over the phone, and you can access this directly from the event overview page in your Artfully account. So here's what that looks like. So this is also pretty straightforward. You just kind of guide your eyes down the page to walk through it. At the top, you'll select the ticket type you'd like, and then you have the option to add a donation that would go to your sponsored fund here as well. Then you can enter the patron's payment information, or you can comp them tickets here. And this can also be done, the night of the show or in advance. If someone's having a problem, you can call them and process the order over the phone. So it's, a lot of flexibility if your patrons are having trouble, getting tickets. You can also speed up the checkout process by getting a USB credit card swiper. So this can be connected to a laptop to speed up the process if it's the night of and you're going to be packed. This will basically allow it to automatically fill in the credit card number. And that's just good if you think it'll be a busy evening for your box office staff. So when a patron purchases a ticket via any of these methods, they'll receive an order confirmation email sent from Artfully. So that's what we're looking at right now. This just pretty much gives them, it's like a receipt, gives them the information about their order and about where your show is going to be. We also do have a print-at-home scannable ticket kit that you can opt into. So this will send a PDF attached to the order confirmation email. So that attachment contains a ticket, which is what we're looking at right now, that's got a QR code. So that's just an example of what that looks like pasted right here. So now that we've covered the various sales channels, I just want to talk a little bit about managing and keeping track of these orders before and during your show in Artfully. All online box office and ticket sales will automatically show up in your event door list, which is shown here, which allows you to check people in as they arrive. So right now we're seeing that Jason's orders is selected right here. So there are 2 checkboxes next to his name for the tickets that he purchased. You can check them off as they arrive. And then as people are checked in, the little bar at the top of the page will start to fill up so you can kind of get an at a glance view of how many people you can still expect to arrive. So at this point, we've kind of covered most of the main functionalities of Artfully. So I just want to talk about a few other things that complement what we've discussed so far. To go along with the print-at-home scannable tickets kit, we do have an Artfully iOS app that's just for producers. This is compatible with either iPhone or iPod Touch, and it's available for free in the Apple Store. This is built specifically for your staff to check people in. Right now, unfortunately, patrons can't buy tickets using the app, but you'll see that on the left is the scan screen. If you have the scannable tickets app, you can just quickly scan the tickets to check people in. Or if you don't have that, you can just use the door list to click on people's names to check them in that way. And that an example of that's on the right side of the page. So we're pretty much constantly adding new features to Artfully. So I just wanted to introduce you guys to a couple of other feature sets that are currently in beta, passes, and memberships. These might not necessarily, be what you need immediately, but they're also things to keep in mind depending on your organization's setup with your patrons. These kits aren't widely available yet, but we've got a big growing group of beta testers that are currently using them. So the passes kit allows for you to sell flex passes to your patrons for a certain amount of shows. Basically, they can add a passcode once they've purchased it that's to eligible show at checkout, and that ticket will then cost $0 with that code. So that's good for like festival or season ticketing. They can buy a pass for 5 or 10 shows, for example. On the other hand, the membership kit gives your patrons the option to purchase a membership to your organization, either on a seasonal or rolling basis. Then they can log into a members-only storefront and purchase tickets to members-only events and get tickets for member-only events that way. So we've kind of covered like the bulk of Artfully's ticketing and donation features. So I figured this was a good time to talk about, how and when the funds are transferred to your account. But first, I thought it would be good to touch on the difference between earned and contributed revenue, because this is one concept that's super important and kind of pertains to both programs, because both donations and ticket revenue are affected by this. So it's really important to understand how our fiscal sponsorship program makes the distinction between earned and contributed revenue. So Artfully primarily manages your earned revenue, which is any capital or funds generated in exchange for services. So this money comes from admission fees, ticket sales, and merchandise, for example, basically anything transactional. Any ticket sales made through Artfully are considered earned revenue, and so they are deposited directly into your bank account. On the other hand, what your fiscal sponsorship fund manages is your contributed revenue, which is just all accumulated contributions and donations that your organization receives to help sustain your project. So the fiscal sponsorship team doesn't manage earned revenue for the purpose of our fiscally sponsored projects, so only contributed revenue to go into your fund. So now we're just going to break down how soon you can get money for both donations and ticket revenue received via Artfully. So ticket revenue settles directly to your bank account. Once a show date has taken place, we take 2 days for processing. Then we'll initiate the settlement after the second business day. Depending on your bank's transfer methods, after that, the funds can take anywhere from, up to 5 or so days to be deposited into your bank account. On the other hand, donations made to your fiscally sponsored project are held for 7 days. This is just to make sure that the check clears and that the card charge goes through and is not disputed. Once that 7-day processing period is over, then a fund release can be requested. The next step would be for the Fractured Atlas team to approve that fund request. That usually takes around 1 to 2 business days. Then, once the fund request has been approved, the transfer of the funds will be initiated to your bank, who will then settle the money to your account. And that usually happens between 1 to 3 business days after that. So that pretty much covers all of the basic functions of Artfully. I also thought it'd be good to kind of include this breakdown of the pricing because we think it's super important to be upfront about the price of these tools. So as you can see, the customer management database, ticketing free events, and syncing with your MailChimp account, that's all totally free in Artfully. If you do want to sell paid tickets, any online ticket purchases, the patron will pay a $2 per ticket fee. And then the producer, pays a 3.5% credit card processing fee for all online orders. Then, just like the fiscal sponsorship program, any donations to your fiscal sponsorship project incur a 7% administrative fee. So here's just a couple examples of how that might work. For a $15 ticket, the patron's going to pay $17. We at Fractured Atlas get $2 of that. The credit card company gets that 3.5%, so 53 cents. And you, the producer, you would get $14.47. On the other hand, here's just an example of a $100 donation to a project. The patron's going to pay $100. Fractured Atlas gets $7 of that, the 7% administrative fee, which covers the credit card processing fee. And you, the producer, would get $93. So before we finish up and leave it open to questions, I just want to let you guys know a little bit more about the process that goes into Artfully's development to show how much we put you guys in mind when we're trying to build it and create new features. Artfully is built using a software development method called Agile. So basically, this means that we're constantly adding and adjusting features and interfaces based on your needs. So we'll plan for a new feature based on what our producers ask for. We'll implement those features and release them. And from there, we kind of collect user feedback and begin the process of fine-tuning again. But it's all, because it's web-based, you don't need to worry about updating the app. It all happens behind the scenes over here. And so we get feedback in a few different ways. We've held several community design sessions across the US to listen to members and other artists, find out what they're looking for. And most pertinent to you guys, which I hope you'll participate in, is our feature request forum. Here, anyone can suggest new features and changes, and then other users can vote on those features for us to prioritize. So you can see the top, the most voted features, those are ones that we finished, and the other ones behind that is what we're working on. So if you've got ideas based on what we've talked about tonight or your experience with the app, we definitely encourage you to put those here because we pay a lot of attention to what's going on in this forum. And based on that, here's a couple of features that are going to be released pretty soon, actually. So we've got relationships in households, for in the CRM, just for relating your patrons with others in your database. We're working on making our MailChimp integration more awesome than it already is. And then also we're working on assigned seating for events and theaters and venues like that. So that kind of just wraps up this talk about how you guys can benefit from Artfully's features. We really built this software with our fiscally sponsored projects in mind because we really understand the challenges that you guys face in keeping track of your patrons and especially in finding a reasonably priced ticketing software. So getting to know your patrons and learning why they're drawn to your project can really help you understand the impact your project's having. So say, for example, you're a small theater production company. Artfully is perfect not only for helping you sell the tickets to your shows, but also to help you understand who went to them so that you can keep those patrons back. Or if you're just an individual artist working on a project, Artfully is pretty much perfect for keeping track of who's donating to you so that you can draft better appeals and raise more money. So Artfully and, of course, Fractured Atlas, we offer a lot of tools to help you with that, including here's some more webinars that we have in this series that are upcoming. I can come back to this slide later, but I thought maybe now we can leave it open to, I do see one question that's come in, and we can, answer any questions that you guys might have if you want to type them in the questions box, and I'll take care of that. Okay, so one question, are there plans to have the app in Android? Not currently. I do believe that's a feature request in the forum that I talked about. So, I would encourage you to find that and, either log it or vote for that because that's definitely something we'd like to work on to improve our app. Another question is, how do we update contacts from Artfully to MailChimp. So basically, in MailChimp, when you're in the Artfully interface, you can connect it to your MailChimp account using an API key, which is just a way for the two accounts to sync. And once you've done that, it'll all happen automatically once you choose which of your MailChimp lists that you would like to sync with Artfully. And then sometimes it takes up to an hour depending on how big the list is and what the backlog at MailChimp's looking like. They'll just gradually add those contacts and those lists to Artfully. And like I said, we are working on improving that, so eventually you'll be able to, choose groups and have your patrons be, potentially have an ask if they're interested in signing up for your newsletters when they check out. So that's a few things that are on the way. Another question that we have, can we integrate with Square through the site? Unfortunately, not currently, just because the way that the payment processing is set up right now is like pretty complex. So we've only got our current payment processor, so we don't have any plans to integrate with Square yet. Especially with donations and whatnot, because that does have to go through the fiscal sponsorship team. So that's a little much more complex of a project. Although we do have requests for that, so that might be something on the horizon, but not anytime soon with other payment processors, unfortunately. Okay. So this is a great question. Okay, so another person asked, if you have an event what if you have an event that does not charge for admission, but we need to take reservations? So Artfully is great for this as well. You can set up an RSVP via Artfully. So that would be, for example, you can create the event, add the details, and so that the patrons can see it. And then on the ticket types, instead of saying here's this $10 general admission ticket, you can have an RSVP yes title ticket or an RSVP no title ticket, and that way all your patrons who are invited, they can respond in RSVP to the event, and then you can still have that door list of the patrons that you should expect to have a reserved spot at your event. So that's definitely possible. I can also just post, if you guys have questions specifically about integrating the MailChimp or setting up RSVPs, this is our contact information. So you can always, give us a call directly, and we can speak one-on-one, or you can shoot us an email if you do have other questions about that. So does anyone have any other questions? I'll give you guys a couple minutes for that before we close up for the evening. Okay, you're welcome, Beth. What about constant contact? So for constant contact, we do have a feature request for integrating with other email marketing services. Right now, because we're focusing on improving our connection with MailChimp, we don't have plans to do that with constant contact. However, that's kind of a highly sought after request in the forum, so I would encourage you to vote on that if that's something that's important to you, because then we'll be more likely to make that happen. You're welcome, Marcia. Okay, does anybody have any other questions? I'll stay on the line for a couple more minutes. We have some time if you do think of any. I will probably send the recording to you guys tomorrow. I'll send the recording, I have to render it, and then I will also send a copy of the slides by tomorrow afternoon, so you guys should get that then. And lastly, will the staff, and we will definitely, yes, of course, we're here, at the same kind of as the fiscal sponsorship team is, we're here, from 10 to 6 Eastern time every day or Monday through Friday rather, to help you guys if you do have questions about, syncing with other services or with getting the CRM populated. That's, what we're here for. It's not just to give the webinar, we also want to provide support every day for all of these things. Just reading some other questions now. Okay, so is there a way to correspond with patrons directly from Artfully? No, there's no current way to email directly from the app. That's a great idea, but that's why we have our MailChimp integration, because that's again another really complex feature to add. And so because we chose MailChimp because it's extremely intuitive and easy and simple and much cheaper than the other email marketing applications. So that's why we kind of focused on that if people are interested in emailing groups of patrons. One workaround for doing something like that, for example, is once you've done an advanced search for a certain group of patrons, or you've tagged a certain group of patrons, you can find like people that went to this show last night, or people that went to, people that donated X amount during this time frame. You could then theoretically export that list and then email them in whatever app you're using currently. So you can't do it directly from Artfully, but you can segment the patrons to then email them in Artfully. So that does kind of help out with that. The USB card reader, can the USB card reader only be used for ticket sales, or can it be used for donations as well? It can be used for both in the box office. It can, as long if you just add a donation at the box office, you can definitely use it there. So that's definitely possible. What happens? Here's another question. What happens when a project is over and I stop membership with Fractured Atlas, but I want to start up on another project? So basically, you can you can keep using Artfully indefinitely. You do not have to be using it for for as long as you're only fiscally sponsored. Even if your fiscal sponsorship project has terminated, you can definitely continue to use the application. And use that same database. I will say though, you mentioned that if you were to say start up another project, you might want to have another Artfully account associated with that project, just so you don't confuse the donors, and you can keep the donors separate and know who donated to what project. But the records will remain even when your fiscal sponsorship is long gone. You can continue to use the Artfully CRM forevermore, theoretically. That's a great question, and I should have clarified that. You do not need to be a member to use Artfully, so you would not have to continue paying your Fractured Atlas dues to be using Artfully CRM. Thank you for clarifying that. That's an important thing that I should have stated at the beginning. Okay, I'm waiting for more questions here. But yeah, I did reiterate a lot that a lot of the features of Artfully are free, but it is important to note that you don't have to have your Fractured Atlas membership, because while even if you're not fiscally sponsored, you can still be taking advantage of the CRM. You don't have to have a paid Fractured Atlas membership. Does anyone have any other questions before we finish up for the evening? I'll just wait a couple more minutes, and then while you guys think of any. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, it looks like I'm not seeing any more questions coming in, so we'll go ahead and just give you guys one more minute, and then we'll stop for the evening. Okay, so I think that's it for tonight, but so you guys do see that we've got our contact information on the screen, so as soon as you have any questions, definitely shoot us an email or call us, and definitely check out the other webinars in this series. And yeah, so let us know if you think of anything, and have a lovely evening.